Hello? Guess it works okay. No. Okay, it's 7 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting to order. One of our directors is currently on his way. He had some car problems, but he's on his way. If everybody, number one, I'm going to call for a resumption of the meeting. What we did this morning is we suspended, not suspended, but we stopped the meeting so that the vote count could be done, and then we are resuming the meeting now. So if we could all stand for the pledge of allegiance. Paulette, could I have a roll call, please?
President Killian. Director Colt. Director Kelly.
Here.
Director Basazzi.
Here.
Director Froggett. Director Cowan.
Here.
Director Traverso.
Present. Okay, let it be known that we do have a quorum. One of the things I'm going to do right at the moment is, Bernie, don't walk out. I'd like to introduce, we did this earlier in the day. For a lot of you people who were not here, I'd like to introduce the candidates that are running for office. Patty Aho, if you could stand. Patty is one of our candidates. Jerry Eldridge. Eldridge, I'm sorry, Jerry. And Bernie Smeltz. And myself. Those are your four candidates that were on the ballot. Okay, Steve, you just walked in. We also have the attorney here tonight, Sarah Spector. I know she just got here. I'm going to put you on right now to give any quick updates that would reflect how we run the association as far as 720 is concerned for the year. There really may not be anything of substantive in nature, but I'm going to give you the floor right now.
Well, I prepared quite a few.
You're going to speak into the mic, please.
So I prepared. You can hear me?
Not where.
Okay, sorry. Oh, close. I'll just hold it then.
That's it. Okay.
So I prepared quite a few remarks, but as I was driving here, I realized unless you do what I do, you would probably find it pretty boring. So what I was just going to basically go through is legislation that has changed that would impact you. As a homeowners association, you're kind of ignored by the legislature. Most of the changes every year are for condominiums. So this last year, you didn't have any changes. The only changes that would somewhat affect you are provisions that aren't any provisions that the association has to deal with. But we have been getting questions about it because the statute was amended to prohibit local governments from saying that you cannot have a home garden on residential property, and also that they cannot prohibit you or require you, I should say, to get permits to remove trees other than mangroves if you have a certified arborist say that it is in poor health or danger to public safety. So previously you had to get a permit to remove anything. This has raised a question as to whether homeowners associations can no longer mandate that you either get approval to remove trees or approval to put in these gardens. And the statute says in other instances, restrictions, as your deed restrictions also cannot have provisions that restrict those things. But here, it's only applied to local government. So until the statute's amended, only a local government can restrict you from doing those, or is prohibited from restricting those things. Until the statute is amended, the association can still do that. So it wasn't a change to chapter 720, but it's still something that may impact you because you are still governed by Charlotte County. But like I said, your design guidelines and your DRV guidelines would still apply if you are required to get approval before putting those things in. Now, there is some pending legislation, but with pending legislation, we can wait all the way until the last day of the session and hope it's gonna go through, and then nothing really happens. So I can tell you about it if you're interested in it, but there's not really anything that earth-shattering in this what's proposed so far. There's an interesting provision that looks very legal and looks like it would have a great impact on you all because it's actually referring to the Constitution when we're talking about Chapter 720, which we don't normally do. I don't know if you have been reading the paper, but there was a woman in Tallahassee who went to purchase property and realized that her restrictions actually said that colored people cannot live in the community. And it's been in there for years. They've never enforced it, obviously, or they're not enforcing it now, but there are cases that say as long as the provisions are in your document, whether you enforce them or not, can be deemed to be discriminatory. Now, this association has a very difficult time in removing those restrictions because they're in all of the deeds, not just the deed restrictions. So they are proposing to put language in the statute that says, regardless of whether it's in your documents, it's void and of no effect, regardless of whether the association takes any action. So right now, that's only applicable to equal protection clause provisions. So any like that, race, gender, things of that nature, the association can take action still to remove those items or put something of record that says they will not enforce them. But if they fail to do so, it does not make them, it does not lead to a conclusion that they are discriminatory or providing a disparate impact to those of those protected classes. So that was interesting. And another way that comes in is with regard to the Fair Housing Act, which does apply to you. And if there's any discrimination in housing, such as the one we see most often is provisions in your governing documents that regulate use of your common areas or just behavior of children, because the familial status with children under 18 is a protected class, and one that people don't even realize they don't enforce those provisions, but as long as they're in there, that you could be deemed to be violating the Fair Housing Act. So something to watch, that would be interesting. It did raise a whole bunch of red flags up in Tallahassee. There were meetings and all sorts of things going on up there. So that one may pass, but we'll have to see. The session goes through, it doesn't start until January and goes through March, so we won't know until March what actually happens. But other than that, I'm sorry to say that there's nothing all that exciting that will impact homeowners associations. But you'll like it that way because I know there was for a time a push to have you regulated by the Department of Business and Professional Regulation like condos are, and they pay $4 a door for that privilege. So that could be quite costly for Rotonda West if that was to happen, and I don't see that happening right now. So let's hope it stays that way, and you homeowner associations stay under the radar.
All right, thank you, Sarah. The next item on the agenda is the proof of notice of meeting. Mr. Kelly? It's been so noted and recorded by the secretary. Okay, the next item is reading and disposal of unapproved minutes. These are the minutes from the 2018 annual meeting that we had here. I guess I could go ahead and read the whole minutes. It may take a few minutes, or do you want to just approve them? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the minutes from last year's meeting?
Motion to approve the minutes as read.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and second to approve the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, otherwise, you guys would have been stuck with me reading 15 minutes a minute. Okay, next item on here is the treasurer's report. The treasurer's report is basically what I gave at the October meeting. Being so close to the end of the month, we do not have the month of November completed yet. The office is still working on it. But in essence, we have approximately $1.4 million in cash in all our accounts. And the year-to-date expenses are approximately $114,000 favorable. The major item on the favorable portion is the wages and salaries, about $65,000. Excuse me, sir, are we getting a lot of feedback, or is this?
Can you use Froggett's mic? Because that one's not very good. Thank you.
Okay, does this sound a whole lot better?
And then just back it away from your mouth a little bit.
Okay, I'll try it again. Is that better? Everybody here?
That's a little better.
Okay, what I was mentioning on the treasurer's report, the total assets of the corporation right now are about $1.4 million. And the year-to-date expenses favorable $114,000. The majority of this is about $65,000 on our wages and salaries. We've done a good job of keeping costs in line, thanks to our manager keeping an eye on it. The next item on here is a report of the committees. And let me get to the first one here. What I will read first here is my president's message. This will go out in your assessment letter, so it'll be redundant when you see it. But I'm going to go ahead and read it right now. Enclosed, you'll find your invoice for the Rotonda West Association Inc. annual assessment. Please take time to read the entire letter and make sure that if you own more than one lot in this community, you will receive one invoice for each lot you own. The assessment payment date is January 1, 2020. Prompt payment ensures the association can effectively manage all projects, activities, and properties for which it has responsibility. Electronic payments are available online, www.rotundawest.org. Maintaining and enhancing the value of property continues to be our major goal of Board of Directors. We are always endeavoring to spend your assessment money dollars wisely for the betterment of the entire community and all its residents. We want Rotonda West to prosper and continue to be the most desirable place in Southwest Florida to have a home. The Board of Directors has approved the proposed budget for the 2020 calendar year. The assessment will remain at $190 for the fourth straight year. The Budget and Finance Committee on drafting the 2020 budget, which the board adopted at its November meeting. The Election Committee worked very hard on preparing for this year's election, and our thanks go to all the committee members. Initially, we had 6 members posted for 2 open seats. The Community Center continues to host new groups and activities for its members. In addition, we've had several miles of walking trails for the health and well-being of its members. In closing, I would especially like to thank all my fellow directors, all committee members, and the association staff for all their hard work and assistance during this year. Okay, that's the letter you'll receive with your assessment this year. The next report will be the Activities Committee report. We had a change during the year with Andy Van Syak resigning from the board. So I will read Andy's report. The RWA Activities Committee meets monthly to review applications for the use of the meeting center and/or RWA grounds and parks and marina. The RWA Activities Committee works closely with the RWA staff regarding the use of the meeting center and grounds. In 2019, there were approximately 75 to 100 applications that were acted on. The committee makes recommendations to the RWA Board of Directors, who provide final approval. Respectfully, Andy Van Sciak, Chairman, Activities Committee. Next report is the AP Committee report. The 2019 Administrative and Personnel Committee consisted of President Hank Killian, Vice President Russ Culp, and Vice President Andy Van Sciak, and later Vice President Dave Kelly. The major item that the AP Committee addresses yearly is the manager's contract. The new contract was unanimously approved, resulting in a 2-year contract for Manager Feldkamp. We addressed several concerns that we consulted with our corporate attorney, which were in the best interest of the association. First was the number of candidates that would be allowed to run for the open board seats. The attorney's decision was based on the association's recorded documents recorded with Charlotte County. The decision overruled the results of the election committee. Secondly, it was brought to our attention that our election guidelines referring to signs was in conflict with our deed restrictions. The attorney's decision was to use the election committee guidelines, which basically are based on Florida case law. If there were a situation, the Florida case law would overrule our deed restrictions. Residents have expressed their concerns on my use of the attorney. However, I have always strived to do the right thing and to consult legal opinions wherever necessary. We have always made sure the manager has been given the tools to complete projects assigned by the AP committee. This resulted in a total upgrade to the office computers. All employees have been provided with upgraded workstations. This has allowed us to convert to Windows 10 operating system. Additionally, we have upgraded our accounting software with a new Caliber software versus the old top system that is no longer supported. On the employee front, the increasing workload has necessitated the addition of an assistant manager. The committee, along with the manager, has been conducting interviews with decisions to be made shortly. That decision's already been made. We also are contemplating part-time help during high work periods. Employment on the IT level was decided to be handled by use of independent contractors. We had last year thought we would hire an actual IT person, do a lot of the work, but we could not find the right person, and we've been using independent contractors. Disciplinary concerns were dealt with and appropriate actions taken. Respectfully submitted, Hank Killian, RWA President. Next item on here is the budget and finance for 2019. First, I would like to thank members of the committee, Russ Culp, Lois Berger, Sam Bessetti, Dave McGrath, and Wayne Legree. 2020 will start with no increase in the assessment. The budget passed by the Board of Directors keeps the cost at $190 a year. The Building and Grounds Committee has challenged us to fund the community enhancement projects for 2019. The 2019 provided money for those projects. We look forward to an exciting 2020 year. With the completion of our new center, the reserve study during 2018 recommended necessary funding. The 2020 budget contains funds to replenish monies that have been allocated to the building of our new center. I'm happy to report that we've been able to bring up our reserve fund to a level commensurate with requirements in relation to our fixed assets. We continue to foreclose, We continue a foreclosure program to address our most delinquent accounts. It's unfortunate that programs of this nature are required. The Building and Grounds Committee has continued to update a 5-year plan, and it's up to our committee that the funds be available to meet their request. And that's my report for there. The next report is the annual report by the Building and Grounds Committee. I believe, Sam, you're going to do that.
Okay, as soon as I find it. 2019 annual. 2019. 2019 annual report on the RWA Building and Grounds Committee. The Building and Grounds Committee had an active 2019, considering and making recommendations on several projects and items. A thank you needs to go to the following individuals who made significant contributions to the work of the committee: Sam Bassesi, George Craby, Bob Bondison, Hank and Sue Killian, John and Barbara Pesco, Art Richards, Ellen Casanos, Bob Barrett, and Andy Van Syak. Broadmoor Park has been the beneficiary of a number of building and grounds projects. Among them has been the addition of almost a mile of crushed shell walking paths, bringing the total length to almost 3 miles. A fountain was added to East Lake to complement the one in West Lake. There have been numerous tree, shrub, and flower plantings throughout the year, and that has included appropriate plantings along the banks of a couple of the park's ponds and also along the banks of some roadside parks to help with erosion control. A state-of-the-art security camera system was added to the administration office and maintenance buildings. In addition, the maintenance buildings received a new coat of paint. Also, a special thank you goes to Stan Plisga for constructing some excellent planter boxes and informational panels that contribute to the beauty of the Broadmoor Park campus. In addition to the above, Manager Scott Feldkamp and his maintenance staff spent the year significantly upgrading the landscaping at the entrance sign areas, the medians on the entrance bridges, at the roadside parks, and on the gazebo island in Oakland Hills. The crew has also completed 7 full vacant lot mowing cycles and has begun the 8th, a new record number. Repairs and improvements were made at the Oakland Hills Marina. Repairs to the Island Walkway Bridge and boat docks were completed, plus an extension of the maintenance access area for boats was also completed. Finally, the committee's detailed assessment and review of the Canal Bank mowing contract with ecological clearing resulted in the board's approval of a 3-year extension of that contract at the same annual cost. The year ahead also promises to be busy for the Building and Grounds Committee. This will likely include more landscape efforts throughout the community, resealing the parking area near the community center building with traffic markings and creation of additional handicap parking spaces, constructing and installing sheltered rest stops along the walking paths, and perhaps even the creation of a couple of bocce courts. The committee thanks Manager Feldkamp and his administrative maintenance staff for their diligent work throughout the year and the support given to the committee. The community can look forward to maintaining its attractiveness as a place in which to live and/or visit for many years to come. Respectfully submitted, Russell Culp, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Sam. The next item on here is a report of the Community Relations Committee. Once again, Andy Van Syak, who is chairman of that committee, was not here to give that report, but the report was typed up by Russ, and I'm going to ask Sam to go ahead and read that one too.
All right.
Sorry, Sam, I'm sticking it to you here, but
Hopefully I can find it.
Russ told me to tell you to do that.
That's the agenda. That's the wrong one. You got it? I guess I can't get it up there. 2019 annual report.
Good thing it didn't make it to the microphone.
2019 annual report of the Community Relations Committee. With last weekend's beginning of the Christmas holiday activities, the Community Relations Committee is wrapping up another extremely successful year. A large crowd attended the annual Gazebo Island Lighting Festival, and Commodore Andy Van Syak led a colorful water parade of 10 boats last weekend. looking ahead to this Saturday's 2019 Land Parade around Rotunda Circle from Boulevard North to Oakland Hills Marina, there is the expectation of 66 participants, which will establish a new record. Recognition of the committee's members is well deserved, as they are a specially dedicated and hardworking bunch. George Berger, Linda Bondison, Nadine Clow, Earl Haas, Barry Keene, Sue Killian, Christine Lee, Wayne Mengo, David Pulaski, Donna Stocksville, Susan Superak, and Andy Van Syak. 2019 has seen the usual events sponsored and run by members of the committee. The string of successful community open houses continued with the most recent on November 7th at the community center, and it was well attended. There has been an influx of new residents into Rotunda West, and the open houses have provided the opportunity for those folks to learn about the association and the many committees and clubs looking for members and volunteers. The annual volunteer banquet at the Hills Restaurant in March honored about 130 volunteers who have contributed so much to the activity and success of our association. Special Volunteer of the Year awards were presented to Sue Superak and Sue Killian. Then in May, 100 plus residents attended the annual outing at the Charlotte Stone Crabs game, enjoying the picnic, the exciting ball game won by the home team, and the after-game fireworks display. The summer witnessed a new look for our newsletter, Westways, in the May-June edition, which transitioned to an electronic addition to the RWA website, allowing for more flexibility in the number of articles and more room for photographs. The newsletter's attractive and popular new design was the work of Lindsay Lee, daughter of committee member and newsletter editor Christine Lee. Christine also introduced a new email feature for members wishing to receive more timely communication and notice about important happenings and issues. This new subscription service, free to members, is called Constant Contact and already has over 350 subscribers. Also in the summer, the committee teamed with the Activities Committee to help promote and run the Summerfest on July 20th, at which hundreds of residents and friends, including lots of children, enjoyed games, food, music, and entertaining acts. This brings us to this year's Christmas holiday season and the anticipation of a huge land parade this Saturday, December 7th, the observance of Pearl Harbor Day, which the parade will be honoring all our veterans. The Community Relations Committee thanks the RWA staff and the many volunteers who have contributed to this year's success. Respectfully submitted, Russell Culp, Board Liaison.
Thank you, Sam. Next committee report, Wildlife Committee. Patty?
The Wildlife Committee, established as a sub to activities in January of 2018, became a standalone committee in April of 2019. The mission of the committee, as stated in our charter, remains the same: to assist the Board of Directors and the RWA Manager in overseeing the well-being of the wildlife native to the Rotunda West community. Further, the committee shall work to educate the community regarding the laws protecting the wildlife. During 2019, the committee sponsored 9 wildlife presentations. We had creating a wildlife habitat with native Florida plants. We had snakes, 2 presentations of that. Presentation in March on butterflies. In May, we had a presentation on manatees, and we're going to have a encore presentation about that coming up December 11th here. June 21st, Nature's Misunderstood Creatures, opossums, vultures, and bats. Oh my. July 26th was moths, and then October 16th and 18th, we had the reptiles of Broadmoor Park. Also coming up next year is sea turtles on January 15th. And we just locked down the date for February 19th for sharks. All these presentations are posted in the RWA calendar and on numerous Rotunda West Facebook pages, including the Rotunda West Wildlife Committee Facebook page, where you can get all sorts of information on the wildlife that can be found around this area. The committee also created 3 new brochures to educate Rotunda West residents about our local wildlife. So in addition to the protected species brochure that we created last year, we now have brochures on invasive species, one on bobcats and another on coyotes. These brochures are available in the kiosk outside between the maintenance building and the office, and also in the office and in the community center lobbies. And you can also access all these brochures on the Rotonda West Wildlife Committee Facebook page. In the files section, you can click on it and you can open, download, print, whatever, any of these brochures that we put together. I also wanted to mention that we participated for the second time in the RWA Open House. We had a good turnout as far as interest in our booth, and that was on November 7th, and that concludes the report.
Thank you very much. The next penny report, I don't have a write-up, is the deed restriction committee. Patty, do you have a write-up for us?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Patty Aho of 252 Mariner Lane, and I'm the chair of the Deed Restrictions Committee. Last December, the board established a new committee, and our members are Patricia Cowan, Carrie Hale, John Pesco, Dale Jensen, Holly Martin, George Hutton, and Bernie Schmelz. In December, the board also charged us with a series of projects for us to do this past year. That included reviewing all of the documents online to ensure consistency with the deed restrictions, creating a table of contents to make it more easy for users to use the deed restrictions, reviewing the restrictions relating to vehicles, the restrictions relating to irrigation and the canals, restrictions relating to fences and sight screens, the restrictions relating to garbage and recycling containers, the restrictions relating to sheds and temporary storage containers, and also to review the restrictions relating to painting and alterations. I am pleased to report the committee actually completed all of this requested work and presented our recommendations for suggested changes to the sections of the restrictions, for appropriate changes for documents for consistency with the restrictions, for example, the residential modification guidelines, for updating the governing documents on the website. We created a table of contents for use with the restrictions, and all of these have been reported to the board of directors for their consideration and action. I actually, as chair, would very much like to thank the committee members for all of this hard work. They worked hard over the past few months, and we're very pleased with our work today. Thank you.
Okay, just an update. All the deed restrictions recommended were passed by the board of directors. The next item there, we have passed them on to Mrs. Spector here for review to make sure that there's no illegal things that we've recommended. Once the legal review has taken place, we will then pass them on to the developer to, hopefully he will agree in most of our changes. One other committee, the RMC committee, Dale Jensen was chairman of this committee. He is retired from the committee, but Dale did a lot of good work, and I like to thank Dale for his efforts. Members on this committee, I hope I just don't forget anybody, but Barb Pesco is the secretary and did a tremendous amount of work. George Hutton, Holly Martin, and we have a new member in Miss Jolliffe. So, and Bob Bonderson, before I forget, he's sitting right here. How can I forget you, Bob? So this committee takes on a lot of hard choices, and they do an excellent work. They actually meet twice a month, and they do a lot of work. They've been getting 25 to 40 applications every 2 weeks, so that's a lot of hard work. The last item on here is the election committee report, and before I pass it on to Peter, following his results of the election, next Thursday here will be the reorganization meeting. At that Thursday meeting, we will elect a new president, new vice president, second vice president, treasurer. All the officers will take the post at that time. It's my opinion at the moment, we'll have a total changeover, and I hope you can all attend that meeting, because it's important. You'll see what people will be running your association. Pete, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Before you do, would you announce the time on Thursday?
The time of that meeting will be 1 o'clock for the reorganizational meeting. Once that meeting is complete, then we'll have the new president take over and run a pre-agenda meeting. Thank you, Pete.
I'm Pete Traverso. I'm the chairman of the election committee. I have a very brief report, but before I get into the brief report, I would just like to make sure everyone's aware of the number of people that make your election possible. And I could ask Jeff Laura. Jeff, would you stand to be recognized? Jeff is our CPA. He's also the person that we use to run the election. His staff comes in. Jeff Laura, I cannot tell you how much I thank him and the members of the committee. Thank Jeff Laura and his staff for all of their help throughout the year. He attends most of the election committee meetings. It's a great source. He's also our CPA that runs the annual report. Jeff, thank you very much, and thank your staff on my behalf and the committee's behalf. Second, another great part of the election is we have volunteers that count the votes. And you have teams, 2 to a team. And they sit at the tables and they count their votes. One person counts them, the next person counts them to make sure that our tallies are correct. I would like to publicly announce those people. You have to hang on. We got 32. There's 16 teams. I would just like to mention their names because they're like the seldom seen kids, and I don't think they get enough recognition. Linda Bondison, Susan Superak, Bob Mazzola, Dick Duggan, Dolores Mazzola, Karen Harvey, Joan Duggan, David McGrath, Diane McGrath, Ginny Mahan, Sandra Jolliffe, Karen Coffey, Kathy Potts, Gwen Grace, Art Richards, Barbara, pronounce your last name, Neef? She here? How does she pronounce her name?
It's Knief.
Knief, thank you, Barbara Knief. Pat Malone, Doc Combs, Corliss Arendt, Charlotte Pliska, I think I mentioned David McGrath, Bob Bondison, Steve Superak, Donna Stotsgill, Maureen McConnell, Ellen Lang, Wanda Pulaski, Gail Coombs, Grace Malone, Emily Thomas, and Nick Gizzi. They count the votes, they all volunteered to do this, and let me tell you, without that team, we just couldn't get it done. So I want to thank them from the bottom of my heart. I would also like to thank, we had some committee changes throughout the year. I'm not going to go into the detail. I would like to thank the existing committee members on the committee. Linda Bondison, Susan Superak, and Dick Duggan. I am the chairman of the committee. Here's my report. It's a very brief report. Based on the election committee events of 2019, the goal of the committee for 2020 is to re-examine the existing policies, procedures, rules, and political campaign guidelines in order to make any necessary revisions for the RWA board approval and subsequent recording of the 2020 election document. That's the report. All I can tell you is I came out of retirement because there was a big fluff. And as you know, we had 6 candidates, so some can't make off, they didn't do this, they didn't do that. We had a closed session with our attorney, Sarah Spector, only to find out that the policies and procedures election committee guidelines, those that are on the website that are handed out, and most important of all, those that were recorded were slight differences. So I'm gonna tell you right now, we're gonna go forward next year. The first thing we're gonna do is set the house in order, and we're gonna have a set of rules and regulations, because that's all I heard when I had to attend that first meeting. Follow the rules, follow the regulations. I want to go ahead and do that. We will have a document that we can all count on for the 2020 election. Pardon? Well, we may want to make some revisions to the current, okay, everybody raises their hands, but let me tell you, as I said before, a lot of people resigned, we had a big fluff of who can run and this and that. I'm on vacation, I come back, oh, I'm the liaison, but I'm back as chairman. I used to chair this committee many years ago. And most important, there are to me, two of the most important committees that you have are the compliance committee, and you all know what that is. If you make a mistake in deed restriction violation, you got the compliance committee. The second committee, which I hold to an equal standard, is the election committee. Without a proper election, you're not going to have faith in your board of directors. So I will continue to chair it if they want. And we'll start out with a small committee, research everything, and we'll come up with a great document that can be recorded, and hopefully we can all follow the rules and regulations so that next year things go smooth. Thank you for understanding. Respectfully yours, Pete Traverso, Chairman of the Election Committee. Concludes my report, Mr. President.
Before, Pete, we would have you announce the numbers. I don't have a compliance committee report here.
Yeah, it's.
Mr. Duggan, I don't have a copy of it in front of me. Mr. Duggan, would you like to give a report, or Sam, do you have a copy of it, Sam?
I'm looking.
I'll read it off my phone.
Okay, Dick is here, he'll read it for us.
Excuse me, my name is Richard Duggan, 17 Bunker Lane.
You need to turn your microphone on.
Slide towards you.
Hold up.
Slide away from you.
Richard Duggan, 17 Bunker Lane, and I'm the chairman of the Compliance Committee. In March 2018, the Rotonda West Association changed its procedure for dealing with deed restriction violations to conform with the 2017 amendment to Florida Statute 720-305, which Sarah referred to before. This statute generally deals with the operation of homeowners associations. In general, the statute provides that when management becomes aware of a deed restriction violation, it is presented to the board of directors, usually at their pre-agenda meeting. The board of directors who may levy a fine against the alleged violator. Now, levy means that in this instance, means that the violator is charged but not sent a bill for the violation. For that violation, the statute provides the alleged violator be notified in writing of the fine and the alleged violation. And if they dispute the violation, the homeowner may appeal the levy of the fine to the Compliance Committee at the next regularly scheduled meeting. The role of the Compliance Committee is limited to whether to confirm or reject the fine levied by the board. The Compliance Committee hears both sides, and if by majority vote it does not approve the fine, it may not be imposed. This year we had a very busy year. Only 3 residents have appealed their alleged violation to the Compliance Committee. The committee found for the appellant in 2 of the 3 cases and notified the board that the fines levied against these residents were to be waived. Since other than the 3 appellants who appeal the fines, there was no other business to come before the committee, the regularly scheduled meeting of the committee were canceled, and there were no appeals. While at past meetings, the compliance committee was able to provide a list of all alleged violators against whom were fined, the board, under current statutory procedure, the committee is not privy to the list of violators, only those who appeal. I'd like to thank the members of the compliance committee for their sometimes lonely work, to wit, Barbara Pesco, who was the vice chairman, Judd Cravey, Walter Taylor, Robert Ponderson, Cynthia Taylor, Henry McConnell, and Jim Lawn. Now, just for additional information, the statute provides that the committee shall have at least 3 members appointed by the board who are not officers, directors, or employees of the association, or the spouse, parent, child, brother, or other of an officer, director, or employee. In other words, none of us are related to anybody except I discovered a while back that ex-director Ken Guillermo, our 2 sons-in-laws are second cousins. So I don't know if that disqualifies me or not, but thank you very much.
I've never been invited to a family reunion.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Fred.
Okay, before I have Pete announce the results here, is there any other business? That's why I'm asking. Stan Pliska, are you here? Is he hiding in the back? No, not all the way back.
Stan Pliska, I'm the chairman of the Aquatic Committee. The Aquatic Committee, working with the RWA manager and staff, experts in the field of aquatic biology, water quality sampling, control of aquatic plants, and the governing agencies that control our waterways, select programs that improve water quality, reduce erosion, and establishes an aquatic system that will provide food and habitat to fish, wildlife, and aquatic organisms. To date, the roadside parks on the Rotonda River have been planted with aquatic plants to stabilize sediment, improve water quality, and provide habitat for wildlife. Water quality samples are taken at 7 locations in the river to determine the quality of our water. In Broadmoor Park, fountains were added to 2 lakes. Our experimental lake, West Lake, has been planted with a variety of aquatic plants recommended by experts to establish a littoral zone that meets our goals to establish an aquatic system friendly to the preservation of water quality and wildlife. Lakes within the park will no longer be mowed to the water's edge. This reduces the ability to establish a zone of plants necessary to control erosion, filter water, and provide habitat for wildlife. A nature work has been established to help the residents become more educated on the flora and fauna within our park. Knowledgeable people accompany the walkers to answer all your questions. An information kiosk is in the process to better inform the residents on current, past, and future activities as they develop to enhance the quality of this great resource. The committee will continue to select projects and programs that document the results of our findings and meet our goals to establish an ecosystem friendly to preserving our natural environment for our residents to enjoy. For details about our plant selection, water quality test, or any other aquatic related subject, please attend our monthly meeting. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Stan. Okay, is there any other business to come before this board? If not, I'll pass it on to Peter to announce the election results.
Still on. Okay, I'm going to begin with the rollover. Did that, Jeff? Can I have you, we have this rollover vote. I don't know how many people really understand what it means. The rollover vote passed. It passed 2,238 to 120. But Jeff, it has something to do with the way the IRS looks at us. So that you understand, the rollover vote is very, very important. Most people don't understand what they're doing, I believe.
Good evening. The purpose of the rollover vote is to avoid or allow the association to avoid paying tax on excess revenues it may have at the end of any fiscal year. So the rollover allows the board of directors to consider those funds for the next fiscal year and spend them, for example, in this case in 2020, rather than pay income tax on any monies which in the association's accounting world, it's called excess revenue. It actually is just what most of us know as net income. And so you folks approved and gave the association's board the power to spend those monies in 2020 rather than pay income tax on them.
Thank you very much, Jeff. So you all understand that the rollover vote's important. We pay taxes on it. So everybody votes in favor, so you save the association some money. We have money to spend next year.
What was the amount of the rollover?
That's a good question, I don't know.
The amount of the rollover won't be determined until the audit is complete in a couple of months.
First, the year has to end.
Right, the year ends December 31st,
And then the books have to close, and then the auditor has to audit the books.
so the actual rollover won't be determined for several months.
Mr. Laura does our annual audit, so hang on. But anyway, the vote passed. I can't recall when it did not pass. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to add, in the wisdom of the IRS, they require the vote to take place before the end of the calendar year. And so there is anticipated excess revenue, and if that's the case, then it's always advisable for the association to take that vote and approve it. If for example, there was excess expenditures or there'd be a little loss, that's no harm, no foul in the fact that you voted for the rollover. So again, this is a precautionary vote that helps the association not have to pay tax.
So this is voted every year?
Yes, it's an annual vote that has to be taken if you anticipate excess revenue.
For every homeowners association.
Yes. This ruling, as it's called, applies to homeowners, condos, timeshares. It's really any association that's deemed to be a common interest realty association. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Just so you know what you voted for. Okay. Well, here we go. I'm going to start by saying that we had a very close vote, and we had to do a recount. So here's the results. Patricia Aho, 1,476 votes. Jerry R. Eldred, 1,110 votes. Hank Killian, 1,103 votes. It's a 7-vote difference. That was a recount. Bernie Schmelz, 814. Steve Reed, 168. I would like to say that Mr. Reed was running for the board, decided to drop out of the race. Unfortunately, when he dropped out, all the documents were printed to be sent out in the election package. So the 168 votes for Steve Reed went to Steve, but Steve had resigned from running. I would just say that if any of you want to run for next year, you're welcome to run. However, if you want to change your mind, do it before you have to send the packages out. That's all I can say. Congratulations to Patricia Aho. Congratulations to Jerry.
As your outgoing president, I would also thank Patty and Jerry for a well-done campaign. And hopefully, you guys will be super successful in your next 3 years on the board, as I know you will. Remember, everybody, to come next Thursday. At that time, the new board will elect your president and all the other officers. At this time, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Seven, so moved.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you all for coming.